Sarah felt the hot, humid night air rip through her hair as she sprinted down the empty road. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Right behind her, the sputtering engine of a tiny red car grew louder. It was a Red Kancil, but there was nothing normal about it. Sarah risked a quick glance over her shoulder. The car was rolling slowly, but the driver wasn't steering. Instead, a woman with unnaturally pale skin and wild hair was pulling herself through the driver's side window. And then, the woman didn't just climb out. She launched herself into the air, floating and flying straight towards Sarah, her hands stretched out like claws hunting for a fresh catch. It all started a few weeks earlier, back in the late 90s. Life in Miri, Sarawak, was simple back then. There were no smartphones, no social media, and no internet to quickly search if a story was real or fake. News traveled through whispers at the local coffee shops or over the fences between neighbors. Sarah was just a normal teenager. She always wore her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail to beat the tropical heat. Most evenings, she liked to sit out on her porch, enjoying the quiet neighborhood before the streetlights flickered on. But soon, the quiet evenings were ruined by a terrible rumor. People started talking about a woman driving around in a bright red Red Kancil. This was a very common, small car in Malaysia, which made the story even creepier. The rumor claimed this woman was hunting for young girls. She was obsessed with staying young forever, and the story went that she needed virgin blood to keep her youthful appearance. Sarah brushed it off at first. She thought it was just another silly ghost story made up to scare kids into coming home before dark. But the details of the rumor were too specific, and they were spreading fast. People said this woman did not just grab you and pull you into her car. They said she possessed some kind of dark magic. Even while the car was moving, she could magically fly out of her window to snatch her victims right off the street. Sarah laughed it off to her friends, acting brave, but deep down, the thought of a flying woman hunting young girls made her stomach tie up in knots. Miri suddenly did not feel like a safe, sleepy town anymore. The fear truly took hold of the neighborhood on a hot Tuesday night. Sarah was in her living room when there was a frantic knocking at the front door. Her parents opened it to find their next-door neighbors standing there, completely pale and shaking. The neighbors pushed their way inside, their voices panicked and rushed. Sarah stood quietly in the background, listening closely. The neighbors explained that they had just been watching the evening news on TV3. They said the local news station had interviewed an older man. This man was completely broken, crying and begging on national television. He was the father of the woman in the Red Kancil. The neighbors described how the father looked straight into the camera and gave the public a horrifying warning. He told everyone that his daughter was gone, taken over by something evil. He begged the police, or anyone with a weapon, to just shoot his daughter on sight. He said she was no longer human and could not be saved. Hearing this sent a shockwave of pure terror through Sarah. This was no longer just a campfire story. It was on the national news. A father was telling the country to kill his own child. The entire neighborhood immediately went into lockdown. Parents stopped letting their kids play outside. Heavy iron gates were padlocked before the sun even went down. New rumors began to swirl. People whispered that the woman in the Red Kancil was no longer just in Miri. They said she was traveling down the coast, hunting in Bintulu, moving through Cebu, and even making her way toward Kuching. The panic was infectious. Every time Sarah walked to school, she felt a heavy, cold dread settling over her shoulders. Every single red car she saw made her breath catch in her throat. A week after the news broadcast, Sarah found herself walking home from a study group much later than she planned. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, leaving the streets bathed in deep, dark shadows. The street lights in her area were notoriously unreliable, and tonight, most of them were dead. The silence of the evening was deafening. Sarah walked as fast as she could, her sneakers slapping quietly against the warm pavement. She kept her head down, praying to make it to her front gate. Then, she heard it. From the far end of the street, the distinct, rattling hum of a small car engine broke the silence. Sarah froze. She slowly turned her head. Two dim headlights turned the corner, pointing straight at her. As the car rolled closer under the one working streetlight, the color became clear. It was a bright, blood-red Red Kancil. Panic exploded in Sarah's chest. She practically threw herself behind a large concrete trash bin on the side of the road, holding her breath. She prayed the car would just drive past. But the engine sound slowed down. The car crept along the curb and then came to a complete stop right next to where Sarah was hiding. The driver's side window slowly rolled down with a mechanical whine. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, but the urge to look was too strong. She peeked around the concrete edge. The woman sitting in the driver's seat looked incredibly young, beautiful even, but her skin was as white as chalk. Her eyes were completely hollow, staring blankly into the dark. Suddenly, the woman turned her head and locked eyes directly with Sarah. A horrible, unnatural grin stretched across the woman's face. Sarah scrambled backward, falling onto the pavement. The woman did not open the door. Instead, she grabbed the roof of the car and violently pulled her upper body through the tiny window. Sarah scrambled to her feet and ran. She ran faster than she ever had in her entire life. Behind her, she heard a sickening rushing sound, like heavy wind tearing through the trees. She looked back and saw the impossible. The woman was completely out of the car, suspended in the air, flying rapidly toward her with arms outstretched. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. Her house was just a few yards away. She could see the rusted iron gate of her home. She practically threw her body against the metal, fumbling with the heavy latch. The rushing wind of the flying woman was right against her neck. Sarah shoved the gate open, threw herself inside the yard, and slammed the metal shut just as a heavy, violent thud hit the other side of the bars. Sarah collapsed onto the grass, sobbing and gasping for air. She looked through the metal bars. The woman was standing on the other side, her young, pale face twisted in rage. She glared at Sarah for one long, terrifying moment. Then, the woman turned, floated back to her red car, slid through the window, and drove off into the pitch-black night, leaving Sarah alone in the dark to wonder who the Red Kancil would visit next.